name's David, and my thought for the day today is from the chapter 45 of Isaiah. The rains are coming. It was the excited buzz amongst our farmer neighbours when we lived in North Tanzania 20 odd years ago. It wasn't a particularly dry area, but every dry season it just got drier and more arid. The grass became really brown, the soil became really hard, and some of the roads became that deep in thick talcum powder like dust. If you stopped the car in the middle of a dust bowl and the windows were open, the car would be coated with dust inside. Everyone and everything was longing for the rains to come, and for a consistent rainy season as well, not just an early one. So when the rains finally came, what a transformation. The Serengeti, not too far away, greened up in a couple of days. Even the local pasture lands got green. The cattle could eat grass again. Farmers could begin ploughing and preparing the land for the next harvest of maize. Everybody's really happy. Rain made such a difference. Not like in England when it tends to make us feel depressed. So Isaiah was no stranger to this sort of life in a dry country. And what better illustration could he use than this waiting for rain and the blessing of rain when it finally comes? The Israelites were desperate for relief from the troubles they were undergoing, and so Isaiah used this example of land, dry land, craving water, and then getting early rains. Let me read verse 8. You heavens above, rain down my righteousness. Let the clouds shower it down. Let the earth open wide. Let salvation spring up. Let righteousness flourish with it. I, the Lord, have created it. These words and what they illustrate still give hope today. It's not dry land that needs water, but dry hearts and lives that need righteousness and salvation. Now, the word righteousness isn't one we use very often today, is it? You won't hear it very often. But I like this alternative. Those absolutely right purposes of God, things which match his righteous nature. We see these absolutely right purposes of God and things which match his righteous nature in the life of Jesus while he lived on earth. Jesus cared deeply for sick people and those on the fringes of society that everyone else hated or didn't have time for. He helped people see where they were going wrong, and he set them on a right path. He wasn't afraid to challenge. Jesus talked about love, but more often than not, he showed love. He showed real love. He showed he cared. He ultimately showed anybody who cared to look at his life what God's righteousness looks like. So was Jesus' life only about demonstrating God's righteousness, or was there more? Well, you know how the Easter story goes. We're getting closer to it in this period of Lent. Here's a verse you may not have come across from Matthew's Gospel in the Bible. It describes something that happened at the very moment that Jesus died on the cross. The earth shook, the rocks split, the tombs broke open, and the bodies of many holy people came to life. Now that would have been pretty shocking, pretty amazing by any stretch of the imagination. Only Matthew records it. Something very big happened that day at that point in time. It was definitely the beginning of the signs of Jesus defeating death. 3 days later, the stone had been rolled away and Jesus wasn't in the tomb. He'd also cheated death. He wasn't dead anymore. So in today's verse, Isaiah was looking forward 700 years and had a glimpse of God's plan for the salvation of the world through Jesus' death on the cross that we're going to be remembering when we celebrate Easter. Okay, so what's the point? Well, these twin shoots of righteousness and salvation, if we take hold of them, they can enable us to do the sort of things that Jesus did. Maybe not so spectacularly, but perhaps resulting in people being touched by God. We're seeing the kindness of people as they receive Ukrainians running away from that war. They're not all Christians, but they're doing things that are part of our human nature. They're kind, they're helping. Just as the dried up soil has to soak up the rain, we actually have to take hold of these things, these right purposes of God, and live them out in our lives. That gives us the best chance to live the sort of life that God intended us. And we can experience that hope of salvation that God longs for humanity. And then we can also offer hope to a desperately unhappy, violent, and sometimes hopeless world. Have a good day.